The floorboard outside my bedroom creaked at 2:47 in the morning. I know the exact time because I'd been staring at the red glow of Harold's old alarm clock, the one he'd had since before we were married. 41 years of waking up to that clock's gentle hum. Now I lay in our bed alone, eyes closed, breathing slow and shallow, pretending to be asleep while my daughter-in-law rifled through my purse. Candice thought I was sedated. She thought the little white pills she'd been slipping into my vitamin case had turned my brain to oatmeal. What she didn't know was that I hadn't swallowed a single one in 11 days. They were tucked beneath my pillow like secrets, growing into a small mountain of evidence. I heard the zipper of my wallet, the soft rustle of papers. Through my lashes, barely open, I watched her silhouette against the pale moonlight streaming through the curtains I'd sewn myself 30 years ago. She was sitting in Harold's reading chair, the nerve of her, hunched over my purse like a vulture over carrion. "Just one signature on this transfer deed, Margaret," she whispered, her voice slithering through the darkness. "Stop resisting. After all." She paused, and I heard her smile. You can hear a smile sometimes in the way the breath catches. "You won't need money in heaven." My heart didn't race from fear. It raced from clarity. I was recovering from a minor gallbladder procedure, nothing more than a few small incisions and a week of rest. But Candice was already praying for my funeral. That's when I knew, with absolute certainty, she wasn't here to nurse me back to health. She was here to bury me alive. I kept my breathing steady. I let her finish her search. I listened to her footsteps retreat down the hallway, past the bathroom where I'd taught Derek to brush his teeth, past the linen closet that still smelled of lavender sachets, down the stairs that Harold had rebuilt twice because he wanted them perfect. Only when I heard the guest bedroom door click shut did I allow myself to open my eyes fully. The ceiling above me was the same ceiling I'd stared at on my wedding night, the same ceiling I'd studied during labor with Derek, refusing to go to the hospital until the contractions were 5 minutes apart because Harold was so nervous he'd backed the car into the mailbox. The same ceiling I'd memorized during the 3 nights I sat beside Harold's hospice bed, holding his hand until it went cold. This house wasn't just property. It was my entire life, pressed into wood and brick and memory. Harold had built it with his own hands in 1987, back when Cartersville was nothing but peach orchards and red clay dirt roads. I remember the summer he poured the foundation, his back sunburned, his smile wide as the Georgia sky. "This is for us, Maggie," he'd said, wiping sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief I'd embroidered with his initials. "No mortgage, no bank, no landlord, just us, forever." We brought Derek home to this house when he was 3 days old. We watched him take his first steps on the wraparound porch, catch fireflies in the backyard, grow into a man in the bedroom down the hall. Harold proposed to me in the rose garden, got down on one knee in the mud after a rainstorm, ruined his only good pants, and laughed about it for 40 years. When Harold died 2 years ago, I thought the silence would kill me. But it didn't. I learned to live inside it, to find him in the creak of the stairs, the way the afternoon light hit the kitchen window, the smell of sawdust that still lingered in the garage. I talked to him sometimes late at night. I told him about the birds at the feeder, about the tomatoes coming in, about how much I missed the sound of his breathing beside me. I never told him about Candice. I never told him how she'd swooped in 6 months ago with her Tupperware containers of casserole and her tight smile, convincing Derek that I couldn't manage alone. How she'd rearranged my kitchen, thrown out my magazines, started answering my phone. How she'd looked at my house, Harold's house, with the eyes of a woman measuring drapes for a home that wasn't hers yet. I should have seen it then. The way she inventoried my jewelry when she thought I wasn't looking. The questions about life insurance, about the deed, about what happens to all this when you're gone, Margaret. But I wanted to believe she was just difficult, ambitious, maybe even lonely in her own way. I didn't want to believe my own son had married a monster. The fog had been the first sign. It started about 11 days ago, right after I came home from the hospital. Candice insisted on managing my medications. "You just rest, Margaret. I'll handle everything." and within 2 days, I couldn't think straight. Words slipped away from me mid-sentence. I'd find myself standing in the hallway with no memory of why I'd gotten up. I slept 14, 15 hours a day, and still woke up exhausted. "It's the anesthesia," Candice told Derek, loud enough for me to hear. "It affects older people differently. The doctors warned me this might happen." No doctor warned anyone of anything. I checked my discharge papers when she wasn't looking. It was the morning of day 3 that I noticed the pills looked different. My vitamins had always been pale yellow, the color of buttercups. These were white, small, slightly chalky. I didn't take that one, or the next, or any of the 31 that followed. I hid them under my pillow one by one, and I waited. The fog lifted within 48 hours. My mind sharpened like a blade pulled from a whetstone, and the sharper I got, the more I understood exactly what was happening. Candice wasn't caring for me. She was erasing me. I thought of Harold then, his voice rough and gentle in my memory. "You're the strongest woman I've ever known, Maggie. Don't you ever let anyone make you small." I reached under my pillow and felt the pills, smooth and damning against my fingertips. 33 now, with the one I'd palmed from tonight's dose. 33 little white witnesses to my daughter-in-law's betrayal. Tomorrow, Candice would bring me my breakfast tray with a smile. She'd hand me my vitamins and watch to make sure I swallowed. And I would smile back. I would tuck that pill under my tongue, wait for her to leave, and spit it into my palm like I'd done every morning for nearly 2 weeks. Because I wasn't going to heaven yet. Not by a long shot. But Candice? Candice was about to find out what happened when you tried to bury a woman who wasn't finished living. I closed my eyes and let the silence settle around me like armor. For the first time in 2 years, it didn't feel empty. It felt like a weapon. Candice arrived at 8:15 with a tray balanced on her hip and a smile that never touched her eyes. "Good morning, Margaret. How are we feeling today?" We, as if she and I were in this together, as if her hands weren't the ones trying to push me into a grave. I blinked slowly, letting my gaze drift toward the window like I couldn't quite focus. Tired. So tired. "Of course you are." She set the tray on my lap with exaggerated care. Scrambled eggs, dry toast, a glass of orange juice, and there beside the napkin, my vitamins. 2 capsules that were actually vitamins, and 1 small white pill that was anything but. The body needs rest to heal. That's what the doctor said. No doctor said that. I'd read every word of my discharge instructions during one of her shower breaks. Rest for a week, light activity, call if you experience fever or unusual drowsiness. Unusual drowsiness. If only they knew. I reached for the pills with a trembling hand, an act, all of it, and brought them to my lips. Candice watched. She always watched. Her eyes tracked my hand like a cat tracking a wounded bird. I placed them on my tongue, picked up the orange juice, and took a long sip. The vitamins went down. The white pill lodged itself under my tongue, bitter and chalky, pressed against my lower gum. "There we go," Candice cooed. "Good girl. Good girl." I was 65 years old. I had raised a child, buried a husband, survived a recession, and once talked a armed robber out of a convenience store in 1994 by offering him a coupon for the diner next door. And this woman was calling me good girl, like I was a golden retriever who'd learned to shake. I smiled vaguely and turned back to the window. "I'll let you rest," she said, already moving toward the door. "Derek might stop by later. Won't that be nice?" She didn't wait for an answer. The door clicked shut, and I listened to her footsteps fade down the hall. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps to the stairs, then the creak of the 3rd step, the one Harold always meant to fix. The moment I heard her reach the bottom, I spat the pill into my palm. 34. I tucked it beneath my pillow with its brothers and sisters, that little collection of poison that would one day be my salvation. The eggs were cold, but I ate them anyway. I needed my strength. Derek came at 12:30. when the sun was high and the house had settled into its midday quiet. I heard him before I saw him, the heavy tread on the stairs, so different from Candice's careful steps. My son had always walked like his father, like a man who took up space without apology. But when he appeared in the doorway, he seemed smaller somehow, diminished, like someone had let the air out of him. "Hey, Mom." He didn't come in, just hovered at the threshold, one hand on the doorframe. "How you feeling?" "Derek." I let my voice come out soft, slightly confused. "Is that you, honey?" Something flickered in his eyes. Pain, maybe, or guilt. "Yeah, Mom, it's me. Come sit with me." I patted the edge of the bed. "I feel like I haven't seen you in days." He hesitated. I watched him glance back toward the hallway, toward wherever Candice was lurking, before finally crossing the room. He sat on the edge of the mattress, but he kept his body angled toward the door, ready to leave. This was my son, my only child, the boy who used to crawl into my lap during thunderstorms, who cried when his goldfish died, who called me every Sunday during college just to hear my voice. I searched his face for that boy now and found only a stranger. "Derek," I said slowly, reaching for his hand. "I've been having such strange dreams." "Yeah?" He didn't pull away, but he didn't hold on either. His fingers lay limp in mine. "I dreamed that someone was going through my purse, late at night." I watched his face carefully. "Isn't that odd?" The color drained from his cheeks. Just slightly, just enough for a mother to notice. That's just the medication, Mom. Candice said it can cause vivid dreams, confusion," Candice said. "Not the doctors, not the pharmacist," Candice said. "She's been so helpful," I murmured, testing him. "So attentive. I don't know what I'd do without her." Derek's jaw tightened. For one moment, one heartbeat, I saw something flash in his eyes. Doubt, shame, the ghost of the man I'd raised. Then it was gone. "She really cares about you, Mom. We both do." He stood abruptly, pulling his hand free. "I should let you rest. The doctor said—" "Which doctor, Derek?" He froze. "What? Which doctor said I need this much rest? What's his name? I'd like to call and ask some questions." The silence stretched between us like a wire pulled too tight. I watched my son's throat move as he swallowed, watched his eyes dart to the door, watched him choose his wife over his mother in real time. "I don't remember the name," he said quietly. "Candice handles all that." "Of course she does." "You should sleep, Mom." He was already backing toward the door. "I'll check on you later." He was gone before I could respond, his footsteps retreating down the hall, down the stairs, away from me. I heard murmured voices below, Derek and Candice, their words indistinct but their tones clear. Hers sharp and questioning, his defensive, pleading. My son knew. Maybe not everything. Maybe not the pills, not the full scope of the plan. But he knew something was wrong. He sensed the rot at the center of his marriage, the cruelty at the heart of his wife. And he had chosen to look away. I thought I would cry. I waited for the tears, for the crushing weight of grief. But nothing came. Instead, I felt something colder settle in my chest. Something harder. Harold's voice drifted through my memory. "You can forgive a lot of things, Maggie, but you can't forgive someone for choosing not to see." The nightstand drawer had been stuck for months. Harold always meant to fix it. "Next weekend, Maggie, I promise." But next weekend turned into next month, and then he was gone, and the drawer remained stubborn and swollen with Georgia humidity. I hadn't bothered opening it since the funeral. But that afternoon, after Derek's visit, after the cold realization of my son's betrayal, I needed something to do with my hands, something to keep me from screaming. So I pulled. The drawer resisted, then surrendered with a groan of old wood. Inside, I found what I expected. Reading glasses I'd misplaced, a tube of hand cream, a paperback romance with a cracked spine. And beneath it all, Harold's old iPhone. I'd forgotten it existed. He'd bought it 3 years ago when Derek insisted we get with the times. Harold had hated it. I don't need a computer in my pocket, Maggie. I need a phone that makes phone calls. But he'd set it up anyway, charged it faithfully, kept it in the nightstand, just in case. If anything ever happens, he'd told me once, and you need help, this little thing will save you. I put Derek's number in there, and the police, and that nice lady lawyer we met at church. Eleanor something. Eleanor Marsh. I remembered now. My hands trembled as I pressed the power button. The screen stayed dark for 1 agonizing second. 2, 3. Then the Apple logo appeared, bright and glowing, and I nearly laughed out loud. 18% battery. It was enough. I navigated through the apps with clumsy fingers until I found what I needed. The voice recorder. Harold had shown me once, thinking I might use it for shopping lists or reminders. I pressed the red button, watched the timer begin to count. My name is Margaret Turner, I whispered into the phone. I am 65 years old, of sound mind, and I am being drugged by my daughter-in-law, Candice Turner. This is my testimony. I stopped the recording, saved it. Then I tucked the phone beneath my mattress, beside the pills, and closed my eyes. Candice wanted to bury me alive, but I was done being the victim. Starting now, I was building my coffin for someone else. Brenda Holloway arrived on Wednesday morning in a cloud of department store perfume and false sympathy. I heard her before I saw her, that high, fluting voice carrying up through the heating vent like poison gas. Oh, Candice, honey, you look exhausted. You're doing too much, taking care of that woman all by yourself. That woman, not Margaret, not your mother-in-law. That woman, like I was a stain on the carpet that needed scrubbing out. I reached beneath my mattress and pressed record on Harold's phone. It's been so hard, Mama. Candice's voice dripped with manufactured exhaustion. She's up all night, wandering, confused. I found her trying to leave the house yesterday in her nightgown. A lie. I hadn't left my bedroom in 4 days, but I kept my breathing steady, my eyes closed, my body limp against the pillows. Well, that settles it, Brenda said. She needs professional care. You can't sacrifice your life for someone who doesn't even know what day it is. Footsteps on the stairs. 2 sets now, one heavy with authority, one quick with anticipation. I let my head loll toward the window, my mouth fall slightly open. The picture of senility. The door opened without a knock. See what I mean? Candice whispered. She's been like this for days, barely responds. The doctors think it might be early onset dementia, accelerated by the surgery. Brenda made a sound of practiced sympathy. Poor thing. It's a mercy, really. She wouldn't want to live like this. Wouldn't want to live like this. As if she knew anything about what I wanted. As if she had any right to decide when my life stopped being worth living. I felt Brenda's presence beside the bed, smelled her perfume. Something cloying and artificial, like flowers made of plastic. A hand touched my forehead, cool and clinical. Margaret? Margaret, can you hear me? I let my eyelids flutter. Let my gaze drift past her face without focusing. Harold? I mumbled. Is that you, Harold? Brenda exchanged a look with Candice. I caught it through my lashes, the gleam of satisfaction, the silent celebration of my supposed decline. No, dear. It's Brenda, Candice's mother. Do you remember me? I frowned, as if trying to place her face. Candice, Derek's friend? His wife, Margaret, for 15 years now. Oh. I closed my eyes again. I'm so tired. Of course you are. Brenda patted my hand with all the warmth of a fish on ice. You rest now. We'll take care of everything. They thought I couldn't hear them. The heating vent in my bedroom connected to the living room below. Harold had always complained about it, said he could hear every word of my phone conversations with my sister. I'd never appreciated that design flaw until now. I pressed my ear to the vent and listened. The Shady Pines facility has an opening next month. Brenda's voice echoed slightly. tinny through the metal ductwork. It's not the nicest place, but it's affordable. And frankly, at her stage, she won't know the difference. "What about Sunrise Gardens?" Candice asked. "Derek mentioned something about it having a better reputation." "Sunrise Gardens costs $4,000 a month. Shady Pines is $1,800. Brenda's tone sharpened. "You're not paying for reputation, Candice. You're paying for a bed and someone to change her diapers. That's all she needs now." I gripped the edge of the vent cover so hard my knuckles went white. Shady Pines. I knew that place. It had been in the news 3 years ago. Understaffed, underfunded, investigated for neglect. 2 residents had died from bed sores that went untreated for weeks. This was where they wanted to put me. This was my reward for 65 years of life, for raising a son, for building a home with my bare hands alongside my husband. "Now, about the house," Brenda continued. "I called my realtor friend, Denise. She thinks you could list it at $450, maybe $475 with the acreage. The market's hot right now." "That much?" Candice's voice lifted with barely concealed greed. "It's a beautiful property. That wraparound porch alone is worth $50,000. And the land. Developers are buying up everything in this area. You could subdivide, sell the back acre separately." "Derek's worried about moving too fast. He thinks we should wait until—" Candice paused. "Until she passes naturally." Naturally could take years. Brenda's voice hardened. "You can't put your life on hold waiting for an old woman to die, Candice. Get the power of attorney signed, get her into Shady Pines, and list the house. She won't even remember living here." I pulled back from the vent, my heart pounding against my ribs. $450,000. That's what my life was worth to them. That's what Harold's sweat and sacrifice amounted to. A number on a listing sheet, a figure to be divided and spent and forgotten. I picked up the phone and checked the recording. Still running. Still capturing every word. Brenda came to my room alone at sunset. The light through the curtains had turned golden, painting the walls the color of honey. It was my favorite time of day in this room. Harold and I used to sit together and watch the light change, his hand in mine, neither of us needing to speak. Now Brenda stood in that sacred light like a crow in a cathedral. "Margaret." She didn't bother with the gentle voice this time. Candice wasn't here to perform for. "I know you're more aware than you let on. I've seen it before, with my own mother, the way you track movement when you think no one's watching." I kept my eyes closed, kept my breathing slow. "It doesn't matter," she continued, moving closer. I felt her shadow fall across my face. "Even if you could speak clearly, even if you could call someone, who would believe you? A confused old woman, fresh out of surgery, accusing her devoted daughter-in-law of—" "What, exactly? Caring too much?" She laughed softly. The sound made my skin crawl. "Here's what's going to happen, Margaret. In 2 days, Candice is hosting a little dinner party. Very intimate. Just family and a notary friend who owes us a favor. You're going to sign some papers, a power of attorney, a few property transfers. Nothing complicated. And then you're going to go somewhere quiet, where professionals can manage your condition." She leaned closer. I could feel her breath on my cheek, warm and sour. My mother fought it too at first. Hid her pills, pretended to be sharper than she was. But in the end, it didn't matter. No one was coming to save her. No one's coming to save you either. She straightened, brushed invisible lint from her sleeve. 2 days, Margaret. Enjoy the view while you can." The door clicked shut behind her. I lay perfectly still for a full minute, listening to her footsteps fade, listening to the murmur of voices downstairs, listening to my own heartbeat thunder in my ears. 2 days. They were planning to end my life in 2 days. I reached beneath my mattress and pulled out the phone. The recording had captured everything. Every word, every threat, every damning confession. But evidence wasn't enough. I needed a witness. I needed someone outside this house, someone they couldn't manipulate or silence. I scrolled through Harold's contacts with trembling fingers until I found the name he'd saved 3 years ago. Eleanor Marsh, attorney at law. I had 48 hours to save my own life. I started composing a text message, my arthritic fingers hunting for each letter on the tiny screen. Eleanor, this is Margaret Turner, Harold's wife. I need your help. They're trying to take everything from me. Please call this number tomorrow at 2 p.m. when my daughter-in-law goes to the grocery store. It's life or death. I am not exaggerating. I pressed send and watched the message disappear into the digital void. Then I tucked the phone away, closed my eyes, and waited. The vultures were circling, but this bird still had claws. The phone buzzed at 2:07 p.m., exactly when Candice's car pulled out of the driveway. I'd been watching through the gap in my curtains, tracking the silver Honda as it backed down the gravel drive and disappeared toward the main road. Wednesday was her grocery day. 2 hours minimum, because she insisted on driving to the Whole Foods in Atlanta instead of shopping at our perfectly good Piggly Wiggly. Vanity, even in her errands. I pulled Harold's phone from beneath the mattress and answered on the third ring. Margaret? The voice on the other end was warm, slightly husky, achingly familiar. My God, Margaret, is that really you? Eleanor. I had to press my hand against my chest to steady myself. Thank you for calling. I almost didn't believe the message. I thought maybe someone had stolen Harold's phone, some kind of scam. She paused, and I heard the sharp intake of breath that meant she was thinking hard. Eleanor had been doing that since law school. Harold told me stories of watching her demolish opponents in moot court, that same breath before she struck. But I ran the number through my database. It's registered to Harold, and I thought, Margaret would never exaggerate. Not about something like this. I wouldn't. My voice cracked slightly. I'm not. Tell me everything. So I did. I told her about the surgery, the fog, the pills, about Candice's whispered confession in the dark, about Brenda's threats, the nursing home brochures, the dinner party planned for tomorrow night. I told her about Derek, my son, my only child, standing in the doorway with guilt written across his face, choosing to look away. Eleanor listened without interrupting. When I finished, the silence on the line stretched long enough that I feared the call had dropped. Margaret, she finally said, her voice hard as granite, do you have any idea how serious these allegations are? I know exactly how serious they are. I've been living them for 11 days. Elder abuse, fraud, attempted theft through coercion. If what you're telling me is true, and I believe it is, Candice could face criminal charges, felony charges. What do I do, Eleanor? The dinner is tomorrow. They're bringing a notary. You keep recording. You document everything, and tomorrow night. She paused, and I heard that sharp breath again. Tomorrow night, you give them exactly what they want. I don't understand. Let them set the stage, Margaret. Let them bring their notary, gather their witnesses, lay out their papers, and then, only then, do you show them what you really are. I felt something shift in my chest, something like hope. Will you be there? I'll be parked down the street with a sheriff's deputy I trust. The moment you need us, you text one word. Now. We'll be at your door in 60 seconds. Eleanor. Harold was one of the best men I ever knew, she said softly. He asked me once, years ago, to keep an eye on you if anything ever happened to him. I failed that promise for 2 years. I'm not failing it again. I blinked back tears. Thank you. Save your thanks for tomorrow night. And Margaret? Whatever you do, don't take those pills. Pastor Richard arrived at 4 o'clock, his Bible tucked under his arm and his smile full of genuine warmth. That was the cruelest part. He had no idea. I watched from my bed as Candice led him up the stairs, her voice syrupy with false concern. She's been asking for spiritual guidance, Pastor, talking about Harold a lot. I think she's preparing herself. You know, preparing myself for death. That's what she wanted him to think. Pastor Richard entered my room with the gentle caution of a man approaching a wounded animal. He was a tall man, broad-shouldered, with kind eyes and hands that had never known a day without calluses. He'd worked construction before seminary, and sometimes I still saw the carpenter in him, the way he measured situations, the patience with which he assembled his thoughts. Margaret. He settled into the chair beside my bed, Harold's chair, but somehow his presence didn't violate it the way Candice's did. "It's good to see you. Candice tells me you've been unwell." I blinked slowly, maintaining my performance. "Pastor Richard, how nice of you to come." "I brought you something." He reached into his jacket and produced a small book, not a Bible, but a collection of psalms with illustrations. My grandmother had one just like this. She said the pictures helped when the words got hard to focus on. My heart cracked a little. He meant well. He truly did. "That's very kind." I took the book with trembling hands, some of the tremor real this time, born of exhaustion and emotion rather than performance. "Will you read to me?" "Of course." He opened to Psalm 23, and his voice filled the room like warm water. "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures." I listened, letting the familiar words wash over me. But my mind was working, calculating. Pastor Richard was innocent, a pawn in Candice's game, brought in to add legitimacy to my supposed decline. If I revealed everything to him now, he might believe me. He might help. Or he might tell Candice that I was confused and paranoid, and she would accelerate her timeline. I couldn't risk it, not yet, but I could plant a seed. "Pastor," I said softly, when he paused between verses, "can I ask you something?" "Anything, Margaret. Do you believe that people can hide their true nature, even from those closest to them?" His brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" "I've been thinking about Judas lately." I let my gaze drift toward the window, unfocused, dreamy. He sat at the table with Jesus, broke bread with him, and the whole time he was planning betrayal. Pastor Richard shifted uncomfortably. "That's a heavy thought. The other disciples didn't see it coming, did they? They trusted him, loved him even." I turned back to meet his eyes, and for just a moment I let him see me, the real me, sharp and clear and burning. Sometimes the people we trust most are the ones holding the knife. He stared at me, something flickering in his expression, confusion, concern, the first stirrings of doubt. Then Candice's voice floated up from downstairs. "Pastor Richard, I've made coffee." The moment shattered. "I should go," he said, standing. But he hesitated at the door, looking back at me with those kind, troubled eyes. "Margaret, if there's ever anything you need to tell me, anything at all, I'm here." I smiled the vague, gentle smile of a woman lost in fog. "Thank you, Pastor. You've been such a comfort." He left, but the seed was planted. The argument started at 11 that night. I was supposed to be asleep, another dose of sedatives supposedly swimming through my bloodstream, but I was crouched beside the heating vent, phone pressed to the metal grate, recording every word. "I don't know if I can do this, Candice." Derek's voice was tight, strained. "She's my mother. She's a senile old woman who doesn't even know what day it is." Candice's tone sliced through the air like a blade. "We've been over this. The house is worth nearly $500,000. Your father meant for you to have it." "He meant for her to have it. That's why he put it in her name." Silence. When Candice spoke again, her voice had dropped to something low and dangerous. "Are you backing out? Now? After everything we've planned?" "I'm not backing out. I just—" Derek's voice cracked. "What if she's more aware than we think? What if—" "She called me Harold yesterday. She asked where her mother was. Her mother's been dead for 30 years. Candice laughed bitterly. "Trust me, Derek. She's gone. The woman you remember doesn't exist anymore." I pressed my hand against my mouth to keep from making a sound. "Linda will be here tomorrow at 7, Candice continued. "All your mother has to do is sign 3 documents: power of attorney, the property transfer, and the care facility agreement. Linda's done this before. She knows how to guide a shaky hand. It'll be over in 10 minutes. And then? And then we list the house, move her to Shady Pines, and start living the life we deserve. Another silence. I heard footsteps, Derek pacing, I thought, and then a long, defeated sigh. Fine. But I can't be in the room when she signs. I can't watch that. You won't have to. Just stay in the kitchen and pour the wine. I'll handle your mother. The conversation ended. Footsteps retreated in different directions. I stopped the recording and sat back against the wall, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my teeth. Tomorrow at 7. Linda the notary, 3 documents, 10 minutes to erase my entire life. I looked at my hands, wrinkled, spotted with age, but steady, stronger than they knew. They wanted me to sign my life away. Instead, I was going to rise from the dead and burn their plans to ash. I pulled out a notepad from my nightstand and began to write. Tomorrow's script had to be perfect. I spent the morning pretending to die. It wasn't difficult. I lay perfectly still beneath the quilt Harold's mother had sewn for our wedding, my breathing shallow, my eyes closed against the morning light. Every hour or so, Candice would crack the door and peer in. I could feel her gaze crawling over me like insects, and I would let my chest rise and fall in that slow, drugged rhythm she expected. Below me, the house hummed with activity. I heard the vacuum cleaner growling across the living room carpet, the clatter of dishes being pulled from cabinets. Candice's voice on the phone, bright and social. Yes, 7 o'clock sharp. Just a small gathering, family only. No, she won't be joining us for dinner. She's not well enough to come downstairs. Not well enough, as if my absence was a medical condition and not a deliberate imprisonment. Through the heating vent, I tracked her preparations like a general monitoring enemy movements. The good china, my good china, the set Harold and I had received as a wedding gift, being laid out on the dining room table. The silver candlesticks I'd polished every Christmas for 40 years. The crystal wine glasses we only used for special occasions. She was staging my funeral with my own possessions. At noon, I risked a text to Eleanor. Tonight, 7 p.m. 3 guests plus Candice and Derek. Notary named Linda. I'll text now when ready. The response came within seconds. Understood. Deputy Morrison and I will be in position by 6:30. Stay strong, Margaret. Harold would be proud. I pressed the phone against my heart and allowed myself one moment of weakness. One moment to miss him so fiercely that my whole body ached with it. To wish he were here, holding my hand, telling me everything would be all right. But Harold was gone. And the only person who could save me now was the woman I saw in the mirror every morning. I tucked the phone away and returned to my performance. Candice came at 3 o'clock with my final dose. She was dressed nicely, a silk blouse I'd never seen before, probably purchased with money skimmed from the household accounts, and her hair was freshly styled. She looked like a woman preparing for a celebration. In a way, I suppose she was. Margaret. Her voice was soft, almost tender, the voice of a woman rehearsing compassion. Time for your vitamins, sweetheart. I let my eyelids flutter open, unfocused. Here we go. She perched on the edge of the bed and held out the pills. 2 yellow capsules and that small white tablet that had become the symbol of everything she wanted to steal from me. Open up. I parted my lips, let her place the pills on my tongue. Reached for the water glass with a hand that trembled convincingly. There you go. Good. I swallowed. The vitamins went down, the sedative lodged beneath my tongue, bitter and familiar. Candice watched me with those sharp, calculating eyes, searching for any sign of awareness, any flicker of the woman I used to be. I gave her nothing but fog. You know, Margaret, she said, settling back in the chair, I've been thinking a lot about what's best for you. For all of us, really. Her tone was rehearsed, each word polished smooth. This house is too much for you to manage alone. All these stairs, all this space. It's not safe. I made a vague humming sound. There's a lovely facility not far from here. They have nurses around the clock, activities, people your own age to talk to. She reached out and patted my hand. You'll be so much happier there, I promise. Happier, in Shady Pines, where residents died of neglected bed sores and families forgot to visit. And Derek and I will take care of everything here, she continued. The house, the finances, all those complicated things you don't need to worry about anymore. We'll make sure your legacy is protected. My legacy. She meant my money, my property, the life Harold and I had built with our own hands. I let my eyes drift closed, my breathing slow, playing dead. That's right, Candice murmured. You rest now. Tonight's going to be a big night. She stood, smoothed her skirt, and walked to the door. Paused with her hand on the frame. Sweet dreams, Margaret. The door clicked shut. I spat the pill into my palm and added it to the collection beneath my pillow. 35. Tonight would indeed be a big night, just not the way she imagined. At 5 o'clock, I rose from my bed for the first time in days. My legs wobbled beneath me, not from sedatives, but from disuse. I gripped the bedpost and waited for the dizziness to pass, for my muscles to remember what they were built for. Standing, walking, fighting. The bathroom mirror showed me a stranger. My hair hung lank and unwashed around a face that had grown gaunt. Dark circles ringed my eyes. I looked exactly like what Candice wanted me to be, a dying woman, fading by the hour. Perfect. I turned on the shower and let the water run hot, steam filling the room until the mirror fogged over and that haggard reflection disappeared. Then I stepped under the spray and let 48 hours of fear and fury wash down the drain. The shampoo was the same brand I'd used for 30 years, lavender and chamomile. The scent Harold always said reminded him of our honeymoon in Savannah. I lathered it twice, scrubbing away the grime and the helplessness. When I emerged, pink-skinned and trembling, I felt like a snake that had shed its old skin. I wrapped myself in a towel and opened my closet. There, in the back, hung the dress I'd worn to Harold's retirement party. Navy blue silk, elegant but not ostentatious. He'd told me I looked like Grace Kelly in it. I'd laughed and called him a flatterer, but I'd kept the dress pressed and ready ever since. I'd been saving it for a special occasion. This seemed to qualify. Dressed, hair combed and pinned back, I sat at my vanity and applied makeup for the first time in weeks. Not much. Powder to smooth my complexion, lipstick to bring color back to my face. Just enough to transform myself from a dying woman into a living one. Then I gathered my weapons. The pills went into a small, clear plastic bag. 35 white tablets, physical proof of poisoning. The phone, fully charged now thanks to a cable I'd found in Harold's nightstand, held 4 recordings totaling nearly 2 hours of damning evidence. I tucked both into the pocket of my dress. Finally, I sat down with a pen and paper. Dear Derek, by the time you read this, everything will have changed. I need you to understand why I did what I did, and what I still hope for, despite everything. You are my son. Nothing can change that. I held you moments after you were born, watched you take your first steps on the porch of this house, sat in the front row at your high school graduation with tears streaming down my face. I have loved you since before you drew breath, and I will love you until long after I've drawn my last. But love doesn't mean blindness, and it doesn't mean surrender. You knew something was wrong. I saw it in your eyes. You chose to look away because looking was too painful, because the truth would have required you to act. I understand that impulse, the desire to believe the best, to avoid conflict, to let someone else make the hard decisions. But Derek, some decisions can't be delegated. Some moments require us to stand up, even when it costs us everything. Tonight, you'll see who your wife really is. What happens next is up to you. I'm not asking you to choose between us. I'm asking you to choose who you want to be. Your father would have known what to do. I pray you find his strength within yourself. Whatever happens, know this. The door is not closed. Not yet. But you have to be the one to walk through it. I love you. I always will. Mom. I folded the letter and slipped it into my other pocket. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. Through my window, I watched 2 cars pull into the driveway, Brenda's white Lexus and a maroon sedan I didn't recognize. Linda the notary, presumably. The vultures were arriving. I texted Eleanor. They're here, beginning soon. Her response, in position, waiting for your signal. You've got this, Margaret. I stood at my bedroom door, hand on the knob, and took one last breath. For 41 years, I had been Harold Turner's wife, Derek Turner's mother, a woman defined by her relationships to others. Tonight, I would remind them all who Margaret Turner really was. I heard laughter drifting up from downstairs, the clink of wine glasses. Candice's bright, false voice. She's resting comfortably. The doctor says it's best not to disturb her. I smiled, then I opened the door and began my descent. The stairs had never seemed so long. I descended 1 step at a time, my hand trailing along the banister Harold had sanded smooth with his own 2 hands. Each step creaked beneath my weight, the third one loudest, the one he'd always meant to fix, announcing my arrival like a drum roll before the final act. The laughter died first. I heard it happen in stages. Candice's bright, performative giggle cutting off mid-breath, the clink of silverware going still, a chair scraping back, and then silence, thick, suffocating silence as I rounded the corner and stepped into the dining room doorway. They were arranged like a painting of guilt. Candice sat at the head of my table, in my house, wearing pearls I didn't recognize and a smile that had frozen into a rictus of shock. To her left, Brenda clutched a wine glass so tightly I thought it might shatter. Across from her, a woman I didn't know, Linda, it had to be Linda, sat with a leather folder open before her, documents fanned out like accusations waiting to happen. And at the far end, half hidden in shadow, my son. Derek's face had gone the color of old milk. His mouth hung open, his eyes wide and glassy. He looked like a man watching his own execution. Good evening, everyone. My voice came out steady, clear, strong. The voice of a woman who had not swallowed a single sedative in 16 days. I hope I'm not interrupting. Candice recovered first. She always was quick on her feet. Margaret? She rose from her chair, her smile reassembling itself into something approaching warmth. What are you doing out of bed? You should be resting. I've been resting for 2 weeks, Candice. I walked into the room, my heels clicking against the hardwood floor Harold had laid 37 years ago. I think that's quite enough rest, don't you? I reached into my pocket and pulled out the plastic bag. 35 white pills caught the candlelight, gleaming like tiny moons. I found these under my pillow, I said, placing the bag in the center of the table, right beside the good china. Strange thing. They look exactly like the vitamins you've been giving me every morning and evening. Except they're not vitamins, are they, Candice? The room went still. Brenda set down her wineglass with a sharp click. Linda's hand moved toward her leather folder, then stopped. Derek made a sound, something between a gasp and a moan, and pressed his fist against his mouth. Candice's smile finally cracked. I don't know what you're talking about, she said, but her voice had lost its honey. You're confused, Margaret. The surgery was minor, a few small incisions, a week of recovery. I pulled out Harold's phone and set it beside the pills. But you already knew that, didn't you? That's why you started drugging me. Because a healthy Margaret was too sharp to manipulate, too aware to sign away her home. This is ridiculous. Brenda surged to her feet, her face mottled with anger. She's clearly delusional. Linda, pack up. We're leaving. No one is leaving. My voice cut through the room like a blade. I pressed play on the first recording. Candice's voice filled the silence, tinny but unmistakable. Just one signature on this transfer deed, Margaret. Stop resisting. After all, you won't need money in heaven." The blood drained from Candice's face. "That's not," she started. I pressed play on the second recording, Brenda's voice now. "She needs professional care. You can't sacrifice your life for someone who doesn't even know what day it is." And then, "Get the power of attorney signed, get her into Shady Pines, and list the house. She won't even remember living here." Brenda sat down heavily, her mouth working but no sound emerging. I pressed play on the third, Candice again, from just last night. "All your mother has to do is sign 3 documents. Linda's done this before. She knows how to guide a shaky hand." Linda stood so abruptly her chair toppled backward. I had no idea. I was told she had dementia. Candice said the family agreed. The family did not agree. I turned to face her, letting her see the clarity in my eyes, the sharpness she'd been told didn't exist. "I am Margaret Turner. I am 65 years old. I am of completely sound mind. And you were about to help these people steal my home through fraud and forgery." Linda's face crumpled. She grabbed her folder and stumbled toward the door. "I wouldn't leave just yet," I said calmly. I pulled out my phone and typed one word. "Now. The sheriff's deputy will want your statement." The next 60 seconds happened very fast. Linda froze in the doorway, her folder clutched to her chest like a shield. Brenda began to cry, loud, theatrical sobs that fooled no one. Candice stood rigid behind her chair, her knuckles white against the wood, her eyes darting toward the back door like a trapped animal calculating escape routes. And Derek, my son, my only child, sat motionless at the end of the table with tears streaming down his face. The front door opened. Eleanor Marsh walked in first, her silver hair swept back, her posture straight as a sword. Behind her came Deputy Morrison, a broad-shouldered man with kind eyes and a hand resting on his belt. "Margaret." Eleanor crossed to me and took my hands in hers. "Are you all right?" "I am now." She turned to face the room, her lawyer's gaze sweeping over each face in turn. "I'm Eleanor Marsh, attorney at law. I've heard the recordings, I've seen the pills, and I've already filed an emergency motion to prevent any transfer of Margaret Turner's property or assets pending a full investigation." Candice finally found her voice. "This is outrageous. You can't just—" "I can." Eleanor's voice was ice. "And I have. Deputy Morrison?" The deputy stepped forward. "Candice Turner, Linda Vance, I need you both to come with me. You're being detained for questioning regarding suspected elder abuse, fraud, and attempted theft through coercion. You can't be serious." Candice's voice rose to a shriek. "Derek! Derek! Do something!" But Derek didn't move. He sat frozen, his eyes fixed on me, tears still falling. Deputy Morrison guided Candice and Linda toward the door. Candice struggled, twisted, spat words I'd never heard her use before. Ugly words, desperate words. Linda went quietly, her head bowed, already composing her statement in her mind. Brenda tried to slip out behind them. "Mrs. Holloway." Eleanor's voice stopped her cold. "You're welcome to leave, but I'd recommend consulting an attorney. Your recorded statements may be relevant to the investigation." Brenda fled without a word. I heard her car start, tires squealing on gravel, and then she was gone, back to whatever hole she'd crawled out of. The house fell quiet. Eleanor squeezed my shoulder. "I'll be outside with Deputy Morrison. Take all the time you need." She left, closing the front door softly behind her. And then it was just me and my son. Derek hadn't moved from his chair. He sat slumped forward, his face in his hands, his shoulders shaking with silent sobs. He looked like a child again, the little boy who'd cried when his goldfish died, who'd run to me after every nightmare, who'd believed his mother could fix anything. I walked to his end of the table and sat down across from him. "Derek." He flinched at his name, but didn't look up. "Derek, look at me." Slowly, painfully, he raised his head. His face was ravaged, red-eyed, tear-streaked, twisted with shame, so profound it hurt to witness. "Mom," his voice cracked. "Mom, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I knew something was wrong, but I didn't think. I never imagined she would. Yes, you did. The words were gentle but firm. He needed to hear them. You knew, Derek. Maybe not the details, maybe not the pills, but you knew something was wrong. You saw it in my eyes, you felt it in your gut, and you chose to look away. He crumbled. Fresh sobs racked his body, ugly and raw. I was scared, he choked out. I was scared of losing her, of being alone, of having to choose. I know. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the letter I'd written. I slid it across the table toward him. Your father would have known what to do, I said quietly. He always did. But you're not your father, Derek. You're your own man, and now you have to decide what kind of man that is. He stared at the folded paper like it might bite him. I'm not asking you to choose between me and Candice. That choice has already been made. She made it for you the moment she started putting pills in my vitamins. I reached across the table and took his hand. What I'm asking is simpler than that, and harder. What? His voice was barely a whisper. I'm asking you to choose yourself. The self you were before her. The self your father raised. The self I know is still in there, buried under all that fear and guilt and silence. I squeezed his hand once, then let go. The door isn't closed, Derek. Not yet. But you have to be the one to walk through it. I stood and walked to the window. Outside, the night was clear, the stars bright, the air full of crickets and possibility. I could see Eleanor and Deputy Morrison by the patrol car, Candice's silhouette visible in the back seat. Behind me, I heard the crinkle of paper unfolding, the sharp intake of my son's breath as he read the words I'd written for him. And then, soft, broken, but there, a voice. Mom? I turned. Derek stood by the table, the letter clutched in his trembling hands, his face a ruin of grief and something else. Something that looked almost like hope. Can I stay? Just for tonight? I don't... His voice broke. I don't want to be alone. I looked at my son, my only child. The boy I'd raised, the man I'd lost, the stranger who had stood in my doorway and chosen not to see, and I thought of Harold, his voice warm in my memory. You can forgive a lot of things, Maggie, but you can't forgive someone for choosing not to see. Harold had been right about most things, but not this. Yes, I said softly. You can stay. Derek crossed the room and fell into my arms, sobbing like a child. I held him the way I had when he was small, when nightmares drove him to my bedside, when the world was too big and too frightening for a little boy to face alone. We have a long road ahead of us, I murmured into his hair. It won't be easy, and I can't promise I'll forget. I know. His voice was muffled against my shoulder. I know, Mom. But I can promise you this. I pulled back to look him in the eyes, my eyes, Harold's chin, the face of every hope I'd ever had for the future. As long as you're willing to try, I'm willing to let you. The grandfather clock in the hallway chimed 9 times. Outside, car doors slammed, engines started, the sounds of justice rolling slowly forward. But in here, in the house Harold built, in the dining room where we'd shared 1,000 meals and 100 arguments and 41 years of ordinary, extraordinary life, in here, there was only silence. Not the silence of loneliness, not the silence of defeat, the silence of a new beginning. I was Margaret Turner. I was 65 years old. I had been drugged, betrayed, and nearly buried alive by the people who were supposed to love me, and I was still standing. Come on, I said, taking my son's hand. I'll make us some tea, and then we're going to figure out what comes next. We walked into the kitchen together, leaving the scattered pills and empty chairs behind us. Tomorrow would bring lawyers and statements and the long, grinding work of rebuilding trust. But tonight, I was home, and that was enough.